Lots of comments and reviews are starting to come out about the R1T now that they've officially began production. Today, on part 2 of my recent talk with Bruce, one of the members of the First Drive event, we get down to the basics of general drive and cabin comfort. He has lots of thoughts about that. We also talk a bit about suspension and maybe a little comparison with the Ford F-150 Lightning. And very importantly, I get his assessment as to whether my kids or a full-grown adult will actually be comfortable in the back seats. So, let's get to it. Does it have that luxury feel to it, or does it have that rugged truck feel, or both? Or
I've been with friends in pickups. I've driven pickups, and to me, pickups feel like a truck. It feels sizable. It feels cumbersome by comparison to a sports car. Obviously, this to me was a nice in between. It still felt sporty, but handled everything. When we were going over the buried culvert pipes, just about 15 inches worth of height, and you're hitting them left side, then right side, and you're stepping over them, if you will. Felt very comfortable, solid, but not bouncy like a truck. Often in a pickup truck, for me, when you hit rocky surfaces, it's the suspension of this thing. Let's face it, the team that put the suspension in there, it's similar to the McLaren that they compare it to in many of the engineering videos.
Yeah,
the team came from there. They know what they're doing, and they put in a suspension that articulates very well. It handles those undulations and the various rocks. When we were climbing up that rock face, in one of my videos, you could see that the boulders, as I zoomed in on it, they're good sized rocks, and it just walked right up the face of the hill. You didn't feel like you were bouncing from rock to rock, anything. It was a very stable connection to where I can say it never once felt like one of the wheels lifted up the way it might in another vehicle. This suspension with the way it works from corner to corner, side to side, and corner to corner with the hydraulics in it.
Yeah,
it keeps all four wheels on the ground.
That's crazy.
You don't get that sense of one of them lifting off. There may be an occasional undulation that's going to cause it to step, but we didn't feel it, and I didn't witness anyone, with
right.
one wheel off the ground type of situation. It articulates so well. It's much more articulate than I'm being right now. I apologize for that, but I was impressed by how well it just picked its path and went. You just kept the speed up, just 3 or 4 miles an hour, and up the hill we went.
There are a couple of promo videos that Rivian's put out where you can see the wheels coming off the ground, but it's pretty extreme. So
yes,
it's understandable. But
yeah, but one thing is you don't see it just spinning out of control either. It
knows to slow that wheel
I think
down.
in one of them, someone actually said you see it reverse until it hits the ground, then it's right back into climb mode.
Yeah.
But it's nice because it seems that the four. Unlike a lot of vehicles, I guess one way to say it seems like there's great teamwork. It seems like all four of those wheels and tires are working together to follow your command. And that's about, I think the best way for me to put it is it just feels like they do exactly what you tell them to do. It shows up in the turns. It's very neutral. I felt like a pretty expert driver because the truck allowed me to, it did what I wanted it to do.
Wow.
It didn't oversteer, didn't understeer. You point it in that direction and it went. So it makes everyone a little better driver than we probably are.
Well, and it's funny that you put it that way. The wheels did what you told them to do, because that should be a given with any car, but it's not really been possible before.
Right.
This truck brings together all of those different possibilities for the first time, being a truck, being a rolling piece of technology, having some legacy things like the, shocks and four wheels and so on, but yet doing it in a new way that is very, common sense. If you were to go back today, what are some of the questions that you wish you would have asked?
I would have loved to have heard more about the drive system and especially the suspension. I know that the team was there talking about it. I just didn't happen to be in the 2 days that we were there. I just didn't have that interaction. The more I've learned about it since then, the more I'm impressed that that's one of the greatest accomplishments is taking that cumbersome, that's a lot of weight.
Yeah.
And to be able to have, you think about the limited contact patch that each wheel represents, each tire represents, and you've got those 4 footprints, and they've got to get you from 0 to 130 back to 0 and up and down a face. And on these side hills, they have to accomplish so much, and they do. And part of it is that the secret sauce, as they say, they put in the suspension. The suspension and the drive system is just phenomenal, and it is quite an amazing computer on 4 wheels.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing. The technology in these things far surpasses anything that any internal combustion, any of the standard legacy pickups could ever hope to do.
Right.
And honestly, when I've heard from what I've heard about the Ford Lightning, is that it's an amazing work truck, but I don't think in its finest form it's going to be anything like this.
Why is that? What are the differences, do you think?
Well, I think Ford realizes I think of probably looking at electrification of their F-150, and so I think they're moving. Well, they've 100 years of history of making them. I don't think they're taking a clean slate type of approach, but they're building what looks like it'll be a very competent pickup, and that's nice. But that's not the same demographic that I think Rivian appeals to. So that this is truly an adventure vehicle that's honestly. Feels like a sports car when it's on the road. Yeah. It's quite impressive as to what it'll do on the road. And I think Ford is probably going for more of the mainstream work type of pickup. And maybe in the upper end, it'll be a little bit more luxurious, but I don't think they're going to come anywhere close to this kind of performance.
Right. I mean, they're different markets, and I think, I think the Lightning looks great. And it's just that it's not intended to be the same thing that the Rivian is intended to be, which is the Rivian's more of a, like, let's take it out on the weekends and go mountain biking, right, or camping or something like that. And yes, you can do work in it. Of course, it's got a bed and you can throw some plywood in the back and do all those things, which I need. But and that's one of the things that first attracted me to the Rivian. It was the specs and performance are off the charts. But the demographic, I mean, it's as if they knew me and decided to build a truck for me, right?
I think that's wonderful. I felt the same way.
You did?
Yeah.
What do you plan?
And it'll still handle all of those work functions if that's what you want it to do. But to me, that's way down on the list of its capabilities. Anyone else, for 100 years, people have been making that. They've taken one that'll do that and so very much more. I mean, I have a feeling that a person who might have an F-150, I'll just say a Porsche, and maybe a family van, a minivan, could get rid of all those cars and replace them with one R1T, perhaps R1S. I'm not looking for the SUV, but if that's what someone needs to be able to haul that many people and do that much, I think both these vehicles will accomplish what 3 or 4 other vehicles normally takes to do all of that.
Do you feel like the cabin is accommodating for the kids too, like for passengers in the back? Or is it one of those things where, yes, it'll take passengers, but you're going to be pretty uncomfortable after an hour or so of driving or 2?
I felt comfortable back there. I'm 6 foot, 200 pounds. Let's just call it generous. And I felt perfectly comfortable back there. It's not as spacious as having the openness of the R1S. And knowing that you have space behind you because you're in a confined cab. But there was, at one point, we had 5 people in there and it was comfortable. Really? I wouldn't want to sit on that middle for that length of time. Sure. But for 4 adults, I think it's going to be, from my standpoint, to be able to go from Portland to Eugene to go tailgating for, 2-hour drive down and a 2-hour drive coming back, it'll be perfectly comfortable. Yeah, and I felt fine in the back seat, and that was with full-sized adults in the front seat. So that there was, I thought there was plenty of leg room for what we were trying to accomplish.
That's great. Yeah, that's comforting because that's one of the things that I spent too many hours trying to measure from just the photographs that I'd seen of the back. Like, okay, I haven't seen a photo of somebody sitting in the back. Like, I want to see that too, and like, is that seat in the front pushed all the way forward or not? And, is there person who's not very tall sitting in front of you, and you know, those kinds of things are just things you just don't really know until you actually sit in it.
Well, the first night that we were there and having dinner, and as I said, I didn't spend a lot of time with the user interface, but I got in and I found that the tilt and telescope of the wheel and all the adjustability of the driver's seat, I got it to where it fit like a glove. And one of the first things I did after I did that, opened the door, got out, got in the back seat, and if another 6 foot, 200-pound adult were in the back seat, it was plenty comfortable.
Oh, you did that. That's great.
Yeah, I did. Oh, I did. And I felt, you know, it's one thing to do that when you're sitting. It's another thing when you're moving. And as I said, when we got up the second morning to drive over and I rode in the back seat, I felt like I had all the room in the world.
That's great.
I'm playing with my camera and recording and trying to, you know, catch pictures of this and that. And I didn't think about it so much at the time, but I realized, no, it was much like last night. I felt perfectly comfortable being back there. Yeah. Now, would it be nice to have 4 captain's chairs? You know, I mean, two captain seats in the back seat to be like the front? I think so, but is that practical for a pickup? No, it isn't.
Well, but one of the trade-offs there is that you'd have to have a longer truck in that case, right?
Or
a wider truck. And to me, I like the form factor of it just because it's not too big. Because like I'm redesigning our garage right now, and I've measured it out so that I know exactly where to put it. But if it were a F-150, I'm not sure I could build a garage big enough.
Right. Right.
And so I'd end up having to park it on the street, which means I can't charge it. So that's a problem. And so I like the trade-off of the smaller form factor compared to those full-size trucks. But of course, that makes me concerned. Like I'm planning on using it as a long drive guy, right? Put the family in, take it to the cabin in southern Utah, which means 10, 12 hours in the back of that truck. So it sounds to me like kids will be perfectly fine, especially since they have their USB port. They can plug the iPad in.
Yes. You know, it's also nice that, and you'll see in the pictures, pardon me, I found the one, I came back later after it slipped my mind completely. But when you pull down the rear console, there's that passageway where you can reach back. If you had a cooler or you needed to reach something in the gear tunnel, you could. Where I was heading with that is when you put that armrest down for the 2 passengers, it's not your captain's chair, but it was very comfortable to ride back there. I planted myself in that seat as we were driving across town. Right arm, you know, I'm in the right-hand side, armrest of the door for one arm, the console pad for the left arm. It was a very comfortable ride.
Great.
So I think Oliver will be just fine. Now, you know, it's certainly not going to be too small for him. He's going to have plenty of room. It's good. I think you'll find it's great.
And you've confirmed something we were wondering about online, that you can actually reach through that pocket into the gear tunnel.
Yes. There's an accordion type door that comes up like it would on an accordion desk, and then you reach right through. And it's
that's great.
A membrane there, so it's acts as a seal of sorts, but it's very easy to reach right through and put your arm in and pull it right back out.
And the kids are going to go nuts for that.
Yeah,
that's the kind of thing that makes a truck. That's all they'll care about. Like, look, I could put the ice chest right here and go back and get a juice out of it.
Right, exactly.
I love that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, it's there again. They're not taking a last year's model and trying to upgrade it. They took a very clean slate approach and figured, what do we want to do? What's important to people? And that type of, I've heard people use the term Easter egg. That was a nice surprise. And it was, but it just makes sense. And as we joked talked about a little earlier, George Carlin had a great line years ago. Why do we call it common sense when it's so darn rare? And it's just a very logical approach. Everything in this truck seemed to be very intentional in its placement, in its touch, in its feel, and its function.
Thanks for joining. Coming up, part 3 of my talk with Bruce, we'll cover lots of other subjects, including how he may have set a track speed record at normal. Please remember to subscribe, ring the bell to be alerted when I upload new videos, and like this video if you feel so inspired. Thanks again for watching. See you in the next video.